The Horsemen Collective is an online platform where we produce online masterclasses with a number of trainers from around the world, and we specialise in producing really high quality content, regardless of the discipline or writing style. And yeah, we bring it all together into one place. It's kind of like Netflix for horse trainers. But I was lucky to spend almost 15 years packing mules through Yosemite, Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park in the States, and I ran 30-day pack horse adventures through the mountains there.
Welcome everyone to episode 136 of the Sen Nutrition Podcast. You're with your host Bryan today, and on today's podcast we have a very special guest. It is Clay BAIRD, a seasoned equestrian, barefoot trimmer, filmmaker, and the founder of the Horsemen Collective. How are you, Clay?
I'm really well, thank you, and thanks for having me on here.
We found you could call it abandoned cafe that we've taken over today, and to have a good chat to Clay and just this really good resource for equestrians and how it has developed over probably less than 2 years now.
Yeah, look, the Horsemen Collective, my partner and I and co-founder and beautiful wife, Lucy, started the Horsemen Collective around 2 years ago. And it really started as a way to share knowledge. We were very passionate about horses and about teaching people. And I grew up with horses all of my life. And I really loved that clinic environment and spending time with people around horses. And there was this amazing connection with people that I found really helped them grow as people. And we wanted to bring that to the wider audience.
So I guess you talked about like why you did it. So was there something that inspired you like with your skill set? Because I can see you've got a vast array of skills from equestrian into that filmmaking.
Yeah, look, I was really fortunate. I grew up in northeast Victoria running multi-day pack horse tours into remote areas of the Alpine National Park. I did my first 5-day pack horse tour at the age of around 6 years old, so camping up into remote wilderness areas with my family, and we ran pack horse adventures and tourism operations for all of my life. So I was always surrounded by the campfire and that art of storytelling. And I suppose in my early life, that's what drew me to study film and TV, is I really wanted to tell stories. I love telling stories, and filmmaking seemed a really natural fit for that.
And when you kind of cross the two things over, because you also do some barefoot trimming as well.
Yeah, look, barefoot trimming, I absolutely love my job trimming. I do it only a couple of days a week. I have a really healthy client list, but really I love that dynamic of going out into the world and trimming horses and keeping my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the racing industry, in private clients, in the off-the-track racehorses, and even just the paddock ponies. It really gives me a holistic view into the equine world and what people are dealing with on a daily basis, which helps me to produce content for our online platform. It gives me a really good insight into the ideas and the discussions and topics that people want covered in something like the Horsemen Collective.
And I think I can echo that as well with how Clay and I are aligned in this, because Peter and I, as directors of Sen, we are on the coalface as well with our clients, and we don't leave it up to a team of staff to let us know what's going on in the industry. We really immerse ourselves, get to know trainers, stables, and get that whole sort of pulse of the industry, because it's moving at a pretty quick pace in terms of sports science and utilizing data. And I think if you are going to be responsible for the education in the industry, you have to try and simplify the message. And when I look at the Horsemen Collective website and how beautiful the filmmaking is and the videos, how did you get started in terms of putting together the vision for this platform and what the aims are?
So we've talked a little bit about my background and where I grew up. And outside of Australia, I also spent almost 15 years packing mules through Yosemite, Sequoia and Kings Canyon. I travelled a lot through Central and South America, making travel documentaries, and generally had a great time as a young man travelling. But later on in life, when family came along, I left the family business and I left horses behind. And it was a really difficult time for me in my life. I felt like I'd lost a lot of who I was, a lot of my personality and my identity, because I wasn't working with horses on a daily basis. So that was sort of where the Horsemen Collective was born, is I was trying to find my way back into the equine industry. My body was sort of broken down. I'd worked really hard with horses in remote areas. My shoulders were sore, my back was sore. I couldn't continue doing physical labour with horses for forever. It's just, that point in your life when you realise you're not bulletproof. So the Horsemen Collective came around as a way for me to facilitate the knowledge in a storytelling manner. So I looked at the clinics and the online space and the ability to teach people. I'm really passionate about teaching people and sharing knowledge and showing people a different way of going about working with their horses. So then we looked at the filmmaking point of view and a problem that we could solve for clinicians and the people that I admire in the equine industry. I've been lucky to do clinics with people from all over the world, and I very much have that cowboy mentality, that cowboy background. That was very much the Western space, and I hadn't touched much into the dressage or classical dressage. But being able to grow as a horseman and as a trainer allows me to explore those other areas. And over the last 2 years of filming the nearly 600 tutorials that we have on the platform, I've changed so much in the way that I operate with my horses. I've brought these threads of knowledge from traditional training, from biomechanics, from amazing horsemen and women from all over the world, and I'm starting to combine them into my traditional colt starting approach. Not that I'm teaching horsemanship, that's just my privilege of being able to work with such amazing trainers and produce this content for people out there in the world to watch.
And I think you gave me a stat when we were having dinner last night. How many hours of film have you put into that platform?
So I think to date, live on the platform, we have around 470 tutorials. We have another probably 250 episodes already shot that we're in the process of post-production. And everybody loves getting on set and filming, but that's where the work really starts when that film set ends. Because for every day that we shoot, we have months of post-production.
Well, I got a really good insight for our listeners yesterday that Clay and I were shooting at Katie from Equipad's property, and I was out in the paddocks and explaining all about blood tests and nutrition and the digestion of the horse, giving an overview, and which will be added as part of the Horsemen Collective tutorials, and to really give some of our knowledge that we have in the industry. And I think we're one of 2 companies that have jumped on board with in the nutrition space.
We're really proud to have Sen on board for nutrition. We've been looking for a nutrition partner to help fill that piece of the puzzle. We have another amazing herbalist on the platform by the name of Kath McDowell. I think what we've produced with Sen will really complement that from a nutrition point of view.
Yeah, definitely. We've got that full rounded focus to try and simplify the lives of horse owners and their feeding, especially with all the chaos in the industry with those many colours of feed bags, just to get back down to the pure and raw ingredients that the horses thrive on. And for us, we can't be thankful enough to be invited onto the platform. And also, it just completes your puzzle pieces of who else you have on the platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the Horsemen Collective was always about a holistic approach. We went out of our way to find people in the equine industry who are exceptional at what they do. And it doesn't matter if they're in nutrition, barefoot trimming, Western, colt starting, liberty, equine health, or even dressage. Everybody that we have on the platform is united by this incredible passion of wanting to do better by the horse. And it's really interesting to step back and to look through the different training methods and styles, and there are so many similarities from the 2 different spheres if you broke it down into a classic English or Western style. The common principles from the trainers, it's amazing how much crossover there actually is.
Can you name some of the trainers?
So some of the trainers that we've got will go through Alan Collette, Amy Skinner, Andrew Bowe, Andrew Turnbull, Ant Desereau, Belinda Bolsonbrook. From Cowgirls Gathering, we have live events and clinics, and the same with Equifest in New Zealand. Joe Gardner does a bunch of Liberty training, Kath McDowell. Steph Lansfield is one of our reining trainers, and we also have free subscriptions for kids. So one of the things that we really wanted to do was make sure that we're providing quality information free. So you can jump onto our website if you've got a kid, or maybe you're a big kid and you just want to have a look for free. Jump on there, and there's hundreds of lessons that are available for free because we just want to provide the information for people. Tori Jeffries, Christine Corbridge, and so many other people are also involved in the platform. We cover topics like trail riding, biomechanics, in-hand work, dressage, colt starting, liberty, reining, and we've just finished filming with Donald Hancock, who was a 2024 runner-up at Road to the Horse, and he's an amazing horseman, liberty trainer. We've done a series on introducing horses to a flag, so cutting work, and also the basics that he goes through in his World Championship colt starting programs.
That's a huge lineup and fantastic to have all those trainers on the Horsemen Collective resource. I can really see how this brings that worldwide expertise to equestrians in Australia, but not only that, to anyone in the world with your platform.
Yeah, look, I mean, it goes on from there. We were also fortunate enough to film at Equifest in New Zealand last year, and we did a lot of live content and live clinics. So we have some live clinics from Vicky Wilson, Dan Steers, some of the other big, really well-known names in the industry, although they're not specifically tutorial content. It's more of a live demonstration from those guys, but we're so thankful to have them on. And all of the profits from the Equifest content is also getting donated to the Kai Manawa Legacy Foundation. So if you wanted to support some great causes, you could jump on, buy a subscription, and all of that money will go to rescue New Zealand wild horses.
That's fantastic, Clay. And I think what we'll do is we'll let our listeners know how to join or to get access to this amazing resource.
Yeah, and look, one of the things that is really surprises people is we shoot everything in 4K with a really storytelling approach. We try and bring beautiful visuals to match that incredible knowledge that our trainers have. And when you look at it, our subscriptions are less than $1 a day.
And that's got to be value, because I can tell you, if you do jump on and look at how Clay does his filming, I've been lucky enough to witness how he sets it up. It takes not just 10 minutes to set up his camera work. It can take over an hour, and he's very passionate in the way it's displayed, but also to get the correct message out in that education.
Yeah, so there's a few other little functions as well. We have a free app that you can download off the App Store, iOS and Android, and there's search functions in there as well. So you can type in to the app anything that you want to learn, and it'll bring up all of the associated videos. So we've tried to make it really short, sharp and sweet so that you can put your finger on the pulse of what you want to work.
It's really intuitive, and I think for any serious equestrian out there, it's a great resource. So Clay, you grew up with horses, as you've just outlined before, 6 years old, leading a pack horse tour. Can you give us some early experience of horses in your life?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, when you spend time in the saddle like that, you end up in these really amazing landscapes. And I was privileged to be in some of the most remote areas around the world and riding horses for my profession. And it wasn't like I was in a high performance environment. I wasn't competing, even though I did work with some really nice reining cow horse trainers and other clinicians around the world. But I was lucky to spend almost 15 years packing mules through Yosemite, Sequoia and Kings Canyon National Park in the States, and I ran 30-day pack horse adventures through the mountains there. Some of sort of the really memorable experiences, I taught the US Marines how to pack for special ops in Afghanistan. That was a really interesting trip. But wow. Probably one of my favorites was running a special trip for the Native Americans, the Mono people, and we ran a hiking with pack stock tour where we took the elders from the local First Nations of the Mono people on a pack trip through the Sierra Nevadas to teach the trade routes to their younger kids, to the next generation. And it was really amazing to be able to sit with some of these traditional people and sit on a rock in the mountains in beautiful landscapes. And they said to me, you're not the first person that's ever sat there before. I said, oh, really? Why is that? And they pointed out to me smoothing in the granite next to me. And they said, that is a grinding stone. So that's where somebody would sit and they would grind the flowers into paste and there was all sorts of things. There's like little obsidian glass arrowheads that we used to pick up on the picket lines, just shoveling manure. It was really amazing.
That's a fantastic insight, Clay, and what a great experience. Is there another memory of you when you were younger with horses and a really good connection you had?
Look, I wouldn't say it was so much a connection with horses. I've always had a really deep connection with horses. But in terms of that pack horse travel, we did it all very traditionally. So we didn't have vehicle support and we could get into really remote areas all over the world, whether that's the Australian high country or the Sierra Nevadas in California. And there's something really special about swinging along a track in a saddle with a string of horses in a landscape and just moving through. You sort of become very in tune with what's going on around you. So there's something really special about swinging along a track on horses in beautiful remote landscapes. And one of my favourite things was we used to turn our horses out in California overnight to graze because, as we've been discussing, fibre and forage is such an important part of their diet. And we used to turn them out for at least 8 to 10 hours a night to eat. But one of the things that we had to do, I had to go and find them in the morning. You turn them loose in the Sierra Nevadas and, it's millions of hectares of wilderness area. And you turn them loose just before sundown so that they settle down and eat into the meadow that you've put them in. You get up, 4 a.m, crack of dawn, black coffee, it's still dark, you saddle your wrangle stock and you just ride off into the wilderness, off track, and you start by going to where you let them loose. If you're lucky, they're still there.
Wow.
If you're not, you actually have to start tracking. So we would cut for tracks through the mountains of California and you'd start by the sandy areas around the edge to see if there was somewhere clear that the horses had left. And then you start following them. So for me, they're some of my best memories with horses. Imagine riding through Yosemite, like remote Yosemite, no people, 4 a.m, sunrise coming up. There are bear, there are deer in the meadows, mist in the creeks, and it's just you riding a horse down the track. You're loping along at a canter. Sometimes, 1 or 2 occasions, I actually spent 3 days looking for the horses because the buggers ran off. But that's a story for another time, perhaps.
That's really, I guess you could say, a connection to nature or being immersed in nature is what's most natural to us as a human being, I guess. And the way you describe it is just absolutely breathtaking.
I suppose it's pretty clear why I spent so much of my life doing that. And it was the same in Australia. I mean, the Australian landscape is equally rugged and beautiful. So we used to operate over Mount Bogong, and Mount Bogong is the highest mountain in Victoria and the highest you can ride a horse in Australia. We would have pack trips up there, and the landscape is really incredible. The brumbies up on the high plains, even though they've started to remove them, there's not many left up on the Alpine National Park. I know 1 or 2 that are still there, and I'll just keep that quiet where they are. I remember one time in Australia with my wife, we actually had to get some horses home from a really remote camp, and there were 2 ways we could do it. We could go the low road, which was a very long, flat, boring ride for probably 30 or 40 kilometres to get them around. And the other option was to go up over the high plains, which is beautiful view, scenic, incredible. The only caveat, it was dumping snow. So we could have stayed relatively warm, albeit wet, or we could ride up into the high plains in the biggest blizzard in January, I think, in the last 20 years and traverse the snowy mountains in a snowstorm. And of course, we chose to go up. So that was a really amazing ride to travel through the different layers of vegetation and up onto the open plains in thick, heavy snow with the horses' heads down. They know the way. They have this homing beacon. It's somewhere that they'd been 1,000 times, and you just drop them out on a loose rein and they stick their head down into the wind and they're getting icicles in their mane. We're all rugged up. There might have been a little bit of whiskey in the jacket somewhere and you just sort of cruise over the top, try to stay on the lay side of the wind. And yeah, it's some amazing rides and experiences like that in my time that I just love. It's part of what's made me who I am today, to be adaptable and to be versatile in our life. You just deal with those situations because And there's no other choice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's some hardship, but then the reward at the end, like you've got views or breathtaking views of the landscape and being with nature, which sometimes money can't buy in this world.
Yeah. So I don't know where that takes us on our journey with this podcast, or whether that's something that people are drifting off on the road. I imagine most people are on the road here listening to this, so keep your hands on the wheel.
I think that's the most popular place to listen to our podcasts. And I just want to add, because Clay has that much experience with horses, and you can hear it in his voice, the passion and that connection that he exudes, to give the equestrian world these resources with the Horsemen Collective, because he can keep it in the context with the filming and has that knowledge about the horses and what should be conveyed to the viewer. And that's what really impressed me when we were first approached by Clay and his wife Lucy.
So Lucy and I, when we first founded the Horsemen Collective, we really wanted to just share knowledge. That's our main mission. We just wanted to provide an alternative to the mainstream education that is out there. We wanted to provide accessible, affordable, quality education in a way that's easy and fun to watch. You know, I think the days of shooting tutorials on iPhones are absolutely gone. Thank God.
Yeah. And I think it's really important that the message is clear and simplified, because at the end of the day, there is a horse that is being looked after by a horse owner. And I think if we can try and improve the lives of the horses through more education for the owner in their training, nutrition, every other various things with equestrian, with looking after horses, then it's only going to benefit the whole horse population in Australia.
So tell me, how did you find filming with the Horsemen Collective?
We're going to reverse the role here.
We're going to flip the switch.
Stressful. No, not stressful. No, very good. And I think for anyone that you do approach in the future, if they are listening to this podcast, I hadn't been on a movie set before. It felt like a movie set, because your camera gear, I think it will be in the tens of thousands that I can see.
Yeah, look, the setup that we've got here that we flew up with is about $45,000 worth of gear, and that's the limited kit that we travel light with.
But it puts out that quality. It's just amazing. But Clay is very good at guiding myself with, I guess, the information that needs to be conveyed. And although it was a very hot day in Southeast Queensland, we had to put a few horse blankets over your gear to look after it.
Camera gear and direct tropical sun or subtropical sun are not the best combinations in the world. So, there's just an extra use for that dirty old horse road.
So Clay, with the Horsemen Collective, what is the vision for the future?
The vision for us is really to have people access the knowledge, to grow and to have more trainers and more lessons on board. At the moment, 2 years in, creating those first sort of, 400 to 500 tutorials is really just the base load for us. We look at that as a minimum viable product. That's the bare minimum. For you, that's like a base feed. So for us, we're looking to supplement and add to that and continually add more content and ever-growing content to the platform. So we have some big ideas with the family farm. So I have a beautiful family property, which is called Springspur Stay, and we have hosted accommodation facilities, trail rides, amazing equine facilities and stables. So we're looking at setting up in the future some holistic weekends where we can invite different trainers and collaborators from different backgrounds and have them come together to provide that really holistic approach to horses and to horse management and training. So we might get somebody from a reining background and a nutrition background and a body worker or a dressage rider and put them in the same yard and run through a clinic and have them teach each other. So it'll just be a really fun way to explore how we can cross-promote and develop that really collaborative approach, which is really what we're about, collaborating with horse people.
I've seen vision on Instagram of Springspur, and it is definitely on my list to come and visit. And
yeah, look, we can't wait to host people there as well. It is a little time off yet, probably another 12 months before we can start looking at those things.
I've just got one question about when you're out in the remote areas of the Australian high country, do you ever think that the horse actually enjoys being the navigator more than you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, when you're out riding, in those environments and our horses at home, you can feel a difference in your horses under saddle when you're riding out the track. They know the difference between the 2-hour ride, the in and out the gate, the bread and butter work for them, and when you go off on a multi-day expedition. And you can feel the energy and the life in their swing, and they get into this rhythm down the track, and they just eat up the miles, loose rein, looking around, and you know that they are just enjoying it as much as everybody else. So because the country up there is really rough and really rugged, and even though from a distance it looks like a grassy high plain, underneath it is sharp volcanic rock and really rough. And when we look at navigating across an open environment like that, the horses are much better at choosing where their feet go and choosing their path through that proprioception in their feet and through that natural ability to navigate the high plains than we ever would be. And I love just dropping the reins on the horse's neck and letting them float across the high plains. In fact, it brings up a couple of really funny stories. Way back in the day, in the early 90s, we had a couple come over from the US, and we'd worked with them in the States at Rock Creek Pack Station, and they came over to do a tour. And on the high plains, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's open rolling plains. There's not much navigational beacons. And there's a pole line that will run across the high plains, and every 10th pole is numbered. And anyway, we had back home Jim, we nicknamed him, because Jim was a cowboy, he was pretty handy at packing, and every time we did something in the Australian traditional style, he'd say, well, why do you do that? I said, well, Jim, we do it this way because we've got different saddles, we don't use sawbucks, and well, back home, we do it like this. And everything, well, back home, well, back home, well, back home. And anyway, one day Jim came trotting up to me on a sunny day on the high plain and said, Clay, what are these sticks of lumber here sticking out of the ground? I said, well, Jim, that's the pole line, mate, and that's what we use to navigate in bad weather. Oh, back home, we don't need no sticks of lumber to know which way we're going. We just know it. So, lo and behold, the next day, we had a snowstorm, and you could not see two horses in front of you. And his wife, now ex-wife, she went back home. She actually dropped something in a creek and jumped off to get it. And she ended up neck deep in icy cold water on the high plains in a snowstorm. And we had to get her into shelter. So we changed our itinerary, changed our direction just to get her dry and warm. And old back home Jim came up and said, Clay, we got to get down to shelter, you know. What are we doing out here? Like, she going to die up here. I said, well, Jim, somewhere up here in front of us, mate, there's a pole line. And those poles are 20 yards apart. And I reckon visibility's about 10 yards. So if we ride through the middle of one, we're stuffed. Well, Jim, he rode up the front with his eyes peeled, looking for that pole like nothing else. And to his credit, at the end of it, he came up to me at the campfire that night and he said, Clay, you know, I've never been so goddamn happy to see a stick of lumber in all of my days. So old back home Jim learned something about the Australian bush.
Gee, what an experience, but then also a first-hand example of how important those pole lines are. And
yeah.
So Clay, because you're a barefoot trimmer and keeping to the theme of education that we like to give our listeners as part of our podcast, when we focus around hoof health and we get questions about it in our diet consults we do, it's all about patience, because a lot of some of the marketing out there for hoof supplements is trying to say it's the silver bullet that'll happen in a month's time, that the hoof will return to its good health if it's in bad health.
Yeah, look, hoof health is one of those things. There is so much that goes into a happy, healthy foot. First and foremost, there are a few things that horse owners can do on a regular basis. One, if you're barefoot trimming, keep your trim cycles really short. The shorter the better. Two, make sure your barefoot trimmer knows what's going on and have some conversations with them. Ask them why they're doing things and why they're doing things a certain way. Educate yourself on what you feel is the best condition or the best health of your horse's foot, on your angles. Get some x-rays. Get an idea of what's going on. You can have some misleading markers in the equine foot. Movement is another really important role that happens with hoof health. So growth matches wear. And when we trim horses, we want to make sure that those feet are moving, that they're getting blood, which is delivering the nutrition to be able to grow a foot. And that's where I feel that the CF50 pellets have really helped my horse to really just supplement that hoof growth. My new horse, she had some issues with her feet. There was nothing specifically wrong. I just wasn't getting the growth that I would be expecting. Climate also plays a huge role in our horse's hoof health, whether you've got soft or abrasive soils. And when we look at where horses are designed to be, it's in those arid, dry countries. So you really want to have a look at holistically what's going on with your horse's hoof health and just start a conversation.
Yeah, that's great advice, Clay. And I think even to add on to that, our listeners, they probably already know from past podcasts that hoof growth from that horn to the coronet down to the ground surface, it doesn't happen within a couple of months. Like full new growth happens at least over that 9-month period.
Yeah, look, I often set realistic expectations for people as well, and I give them a little bit longer. I almost say 12 months because, again, it depends how regular you're trimming. If you've got some issues going on, whether it's seedy toe or grass cracks, or you're just looking to grow out and develop that digital cushion can take 3 to 4 years to redevelop the soft tissue.
Yeah, and additionally, with the nutrients for the horse, it all comes down to a balanced diet. So your macronutrients, your protein, your fat, and good fats in that plant-based omega-3, promoting those anti-inflammatory properties. But then also in the CF50 and our grain-free ultimate has a quality trace mineral profile, which really helps put together the nutrients involved in making that hoof health the best it can be.
I should just add a caveat that I am in fact a self-taught barefoot trimmer. And it's come from a lifetime of passion in the industry. I actively go out and educate myself from sources and people that know better than me. Although, with that said, I have been around horses for the last 35 years in a professional capacity. So, education's not everything.
That's right. It's progression with education. And I think I've said it on the previous podcast, one of our important traits we need to understand in progressing with our knowledge is learning something, but then also unlearning things in the past, because that's how we innovate and how we become better as a human, but also for our horses as well.
Absolutely. I mean, horsemanship is a personal journey, and where you're at today with your horses, your horsemanship, whether that's dressage, western, or barefoot trimming, you have to remember to look back at where you were 12 months ago or 2 years ago and not worry about all of the events and the knowledge that you don't have, because I'm still learning. I'm learning every day about horses and horsemanship, and I've been involved in horses my entire life. What's relevant for me today in my journey may not be relevant to somebody who's further along the path or just starting out. So we have to be aware that knowledge and what's relevant to that person and what they need to learn at that point in time is going to vary from person to person. And that's why the way people communicate is also very personal. So we'll find people that communicate things to us in a way that is logical and makes sense to us. And that's a very personal choice as well. So that's another really great benefit of a platform like the Horsemen Collective, is you can find trainers that you resonate with, that you enjoy their story, you enjoy the way they teach. And for everybody, that's going to be different. Some people like their knowledge poured out to them in A, B, C, D format. Others really like a visual learning approach. So by providing options for both, the Horsemen Collective becomes a platform where people can explore different trainers, different methods, and different ways that they'd like to learn.
100% agree with that approach, because for me personally, I can't read anything outside, say, a journal article, which I really keep up to date with the latest in the horse nutrition research and also other physiology facts around horses. But give me a book that's over 10 chapters long, I'll take the audiobook option, thank you, and we'll definitely listen in the car for that. And I think you're right, going with people's strengths on how they learn and how they can connect with the trainer or the educator is so important.
I'd also like to say that both Sen and the Horsemen Collective will be at Equitana this year. So if you've got any questions or you want to meet some of our amazing trainers, you can pop on down to Equitana, and a lot of our trainers are presenting over the course of the event, and they'll be available at the Horsemen Collective stall. So you can find us anywhere in there. You'll be able to jump on the little app and walk your way to us. You can actually sit down and talk to some of these trainers and get a really personal approach for you and your horse.
I think what we were looking at last night, Sen has site 369 if anyone looks in their map. But Clay, do you have your site number?
I'm going to grab my site number, 379.
Oh, 379. Okay.
Yep. Just for a bit of fun, I've actually printed off, I used AI to generate a Where's Wally in a cowboy and a dressage outfit, holding a QR code. And if you scan the QR code, it opens Google Maps and sets a pin with directions to walk to the Horsemen Collective stall. And we're going to have a little cool Where's Waldo in our stall. And if you find Waldo, you can win a prize.
That's so cool.
We have so many of our trainers coming along to spend a bit of time in the stall, and they're available for you to chat to. So if you've got some photos of your horse's feet or a video of what's going on in your training, make sure you've got it on your phone when you come down to Equitana, and you can sit down with some amazing trainers and get some one-on-one advice.
It's going to be a huge 4 days. And I think when we look at how big it was 2 years ago and they're saying it's going to be bigger, I can only imagine the chaos that'll be there, but it's such a fun time to network and to really see what's happening in the industry and connect with other like-minded equestrians.
It's exhausting.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to take a deep breath and you got to power on through it. And yeah, and I think your site number is not too far away from us, so we might have to give each other a high five to keep spurring each other on.
No, I was going to pull faces at you across the corridor.
Yeah, I think that brings us to nearly the end of this podcast, Clay. Is there anything else we'd like to discuss?
So thanks for joining us. And anybody who's interested in having a look at the Horsemen Collective, you can just Google it, the Horsemen, MEN collective.com, and jump on, have a look. And I'll just mention as well that we actually donate 25% of all of our profit to charity. And we focus on 3 pillars. 1, horses. 2, young people. And 3 is the environment. So every subscription that you buy will donate 25% to charities like the Kaimanawa Legacy Foundation, which is the wild horses in New Zealand, tree planting exercises. We also have digital scholarships for young Australians. So if you're interested in applying for a digital scholarship, jump on the website and you can have a look and apply. It's absolutely free, and you'll get unlimited access to all of our training content for absolutely free. That's a fantastic initiative of giving back, and we can't thank you enough for your time here today, Clay. For any first-time listeners, this is episode 135, so you've got a lot of catching up to do from episode 1. But when you look at how we try and educate through our podcast, you'll find some fantastic resources back through there. If you're not aware of Sen or who we are, Peter and myself founded the company over 10 years ago, and we've come from that holistic view in finding reasons why to feed our horses according to their physiology, and what we want to do is support them, but also simplify the way we feed them, because there is a lot of information in the industry, and this is our way we do it. We have a reason for each part of our diet program, starting with those foundations of sufficient roughage. And you can deep dive a lot of the podcasts that explain why and when and how we should be feeding them, and this is the Sen way, and we've got a proven track record. Our products are in many leading stables around Australia and studs. It's a testament to the ingredients that we use. And for Clay and the Horsemen Collective, I will drop the links in the show notes for this episode. It's coming up to lunch. What is your drink of choice? Or look, probably a Negroni.
Oh, interesting. And what would be your food of choice?
Food of choice. Look, I like jumping in the kitchen, actually. Anything that is holistic, clean, homegrown, tasty. Oh, look, I'll eat anything, to be honest.
Not fussy. And what's your favourite horse breed?
Oh, horse breed.
You just choose one.
Just one.
Just one.
Look, I'm going to have to take one from left field and say mules.
Okay. Reason?
Oh, they have such a big personality, and I have such a good affinity with mules. The relationship with mules versus a horse is very individualized, I think.
Yeah, nice. And I think we might leave it there.
I've got a quick fire for you back.
Oh, here we go.
If horses eat hay for breakfast, what do mules eat?
This is a dad joke. We're both dads.
Mulesley.
Oh, we actually do. We both have 2 kids, and the dad jokes come quick these days, I think.
They do, yeah. How about we flip the switch? Thank you so much for having me on the podcast today, and I'm really proud to be participant number 135 on the Sen podcast. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the Sen products and the mentality that you have about doing what's best for the horse first. And so for me, that natural link between what Sen does and what the Horsemen Collective does, it's all about putting the best interest of the horse first.
Yeah, we're definitely moving in that same way with our thinking and our alignment. And if you enjoyed this podcast episode, please leave us a 5-star review on Spotify. It really helps get the exposure out there. And thanks once again, Clay, for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.